station covering all of the DMV. This is DC News Now.
Straight ahead here on DC News Now at 6, what we're learning about a New York woman found dead after being kidnapped and the man she was last seen with. Plus, a Prince William County driver is now charged following a deadly crash that left a woman and a young girl dead. And with artificial intelligence becoming more popular, what lawmakers are doing to make sure they aren't violating any rules. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for DC News Now at 6. I'm Annalisa Gale. We have a few alerts to tell you about. Here's meteorologist Scott Sumner now.
Yeah, unlike last weekend where we were talking about severe weather in parts of the viewing area, today, no severe weather. We're talking about the cold as we go throughout the evening. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at what cold alerts are out there. We'll start off with the freeze watch. Just one county, that's Spotsylvania County here down in Virginia. Other than that, we're looking at freeze warnings that are in the deep shade of blue. As you notice here, that means Woodstock, Winchester, Martinsburg, up through Hagerstown and over towards Westminster. And then the lighter shade of blue, well, that comes in here as a frost advisory. That includes all of the district, Manassas, Waldorf, PG County. We're looking at parts of Montgomery, Central and Southern Montgomery County, and then in towards Fairfax County. That does mean when you're talking about a freeze warning, it's going to happen. Temperatures will get down to freezing. So certainly bring in your tender vegetation and protect that. That's after the skies clear, because up until around the midnight hour, we will have clouds around, as noted by the day planner here. Notice the temperatures there at that point from 8 to 9 to 10 into the 40s, but we will, like I said, get into the 30s, and we'll bring in the full 7-day forecast, which I think most of us will like, coming up in a little bit.
All right, thanks, Scott. Well, an update now on the New York woman found dead in Northern Virginia after she was abducted. Police say they found the body of Tatiana David Wednesday night beside the SUV believed to have been used to kidnap her along I-95 in Quantico. Dave Laval spoke to her family just a short time ago.
The family of Tatiana David is left with many questions, according to her sister, Olivia Valerio.
Everyone's doing as best as they can, but, you know, it's hard. She just left so suddenly, you can't really, gather it.
Virginia State Police found her body late Wednesday night along I-95 in Quantico. It was beside the SUV police believe was used earlier in the day to kidnap David from her home in Ithaca, New York. Police say the suspect is 34-year-old Michael Davis, a former partner and the father of David's 4-year-old son. Police shot Davis after they said he first fired at them. State trooper pulled over White for what we've been told were wrong license plates. That led to a high-speed chase that ended 20 miles away and a shootout. David's death came on her 34th birthday.
She was just so perfect in every way. She was everything you could ask as a sister. She was there for me whenever I needed her with advice or just there to talk when I needed her. And you just couldn't miss her once you saw her. She's so amazing.
Now, at last check, the suspect, Michael Davis, was in critical condition at Inova Fairfax Hospital.
Let's rally up. Let's go.
Scott and others took off from the Giant parking lot in Southeast D.C. this evening to rally to support him. U.S. Marshals shot and killed the 22-year-old on February 28th along a section of 3rd Street Southeast. D.C. police say the Marshals tried to arrest Scott for a parole violation. They fired when Scott reportedly produced a gun. Scott's mother was among the attendees at today's rally.
I brought him here. I was the first one to hold him. I couldn't be the one to be there when he closed his eyes and he took his last breath. I need my son. I miss my son.
Reporters drove around Southeast D.C. before they ended their trip about an hour later back at the Giant food store. Well, new tonight, a 33-year-old Stafford man is now charged with 2 counts of manslaughter after police say he intentionally drove into traffic, leaving a 33-year-old woman and a 5-year-old girl dead. It happened on April 5th near Dumfries Road and Fortuna Center Plaza. Police say Mustafa Al-Jazairi was driving a 2007 Chrysler 300 with the woman and child inside when he allegedly intentionally struck a Suburban which was heading in the opposite direction. The crash also left a 46-year-old female driver seriously injured. Mustafa is now being held without bond. Well, developing this evening, Prince George's County Police have confirmed that the man who set fire to the Huntley Square condos is now under arrest and has been charged with arson and reckless endangerment. They say the man, 50-year-old Anthony Cooper, set the fires late last Thursday night, displacing 8 adults and 2 children after destroying 10 apartments. Police say that Cooper was detained before fire crews arrived at the scene. The Red Cross is assisting displaced residents. Over to Capitol Hill now. Prominent players in the world of artificial intelligence coming face to face with lawmakers. This comes as a new chat app is getting in the way of teachers and employers. Correspondent Raquel Martin explains.
As tech giants like Microsoft, Meta, and Google race to unleash artificial intelligence tools to the public,
they're not slowing down.
AI experts like Patrick Hall say policymakers in Washington must keep up.
I'm concerned. We're a little bit behind already.
This week, President Biden attempted to address those fears.
Let's get this meeting started.
At a meeting with his Council of Science and Technology advisors, he acknowledged AI presents both benefits and risks.
To our society, to our economy, to our national security.
He says tech companies need to create safeguards to prevent discrimination and misinformation. He also called on Congress to pass legislation to ensure user data isn't misused.
Social media has already shown us the harm that powerful technologies can do.
To prepare for AI, experts in the field agree protecting user data is a good first step. But Casey Myers, who researches AI at Virginia Tech, warns more complicated issues loom ahead for the workforce, specifically in communications and among artists.
AI is going to be a tool that they can use for a lot of good, but they're going to have to be able to understand the contours of what AI can do and not, and some of the legal issues and ethical issues.
Still, he's urging Washington not to go overboard.
If you're too quick to create regulation, you can potentially stifle the growth of the technology.
Lawmakers have yet to propose specific regulations and instead are calling for more research. In Washington, Raquel Martin.
Well, right now, the DMV, as you know, has diverse opinions about pretty much everything, but we couldn't be more divided over who are the worst drivers in the region. Our Joseph Olmo has a look at a new poll that suggests all of us may be to blame.
Who are the worst drivers in the DMV? It is a question that D.C., Maryland, and Virginia have all been wrestling to answer for generations. And a new poll from the Washington Post and George Mason University found out it's probably all of us. Apparently, none of us like to look into the mirror because the answer to the question, which part of the Washington area has the worst drivers, actually depends on who you're asking and where they live. Take a look. Suburban Marylanders, according to the poll, put the majority of the blame on D.C. drivers. Meanwhile, Virginia says 42% of the region's bad drivers are Marylanders. D.C. says both Maryland and Virginia are over 50% to blame. Of course, this was one of those instances where we needed to take a microphone to the streets and get some opinions. Who are the worst drivers in the DMV between D.C., Maryland, and Virginia?
Maryland.
So the people who live in the district are really good drivers?
Right.
It's people from Maryland and Virginia then for you?
It's people that coming into the district.
Anybody?
Anybody that come in here.
What do they not get? What don't they understand?
They don't watch. They be on the phone. They don't watch where they going. You know what I'm saying? They don't know the streets.
Well, so the thing is, like, not everyone's a bad driver, but there are certainly lots of people who are bad drivers. So I think everyone likes to see, you know, whatever license plate is where you're not from, when you get cut off and you're like, oh, it's always them, it's always them. And so it's also your own people, too, a lot of the time, so.
Some diverse opinions, to say the very least. Now, if you take all of the responses to the poll, you combine them all together, it averages out to roughly 40% of the blame in the entire DMV going to D.C. alone. Reporting here in the newsroom, I'm Joseph Olmo. D.C. News Now, back to you.
The power to determine who represents someone is with voters. They've turned the Tennessee legislature into an old boys club. It's an outrage to American democracy, and it adds insult to proverbial injury that the 2 black members are removed and the white member is not.
Right now, civil rights activists are speaking out following the expulsion of 2 Democrats from the Tennessee General Assembly. They face retaliation for chanting back and forth with gun control supporters inside the House chamber. This comes after last month's school shooting in Nashville, which left 6 dead. Another representative, Gloria Johnson, was also on the chopping block but survived by just a single vote. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris made a last-minute trip to Tennessee yesterday and met with the expelled lawmakers as well as young people advocating for tougher gun laws. President Joe Biden also condemning the expulsion, calling it shocking, undemocratic, and without precedent. Now, activists rallied at the Tennessee State Capitol on Thursday ahead of that expulsion vote. This is some footage that shows the highway patrol officers blocking the staircase to protesters inside that building. It was a heated day in the Tennessee State House as lawmakers clashed over both the expulsion vote and the ongoing gun control debate.
Whatever it takes to make sure they are safe at school and feel safe at school, yes, sir, we will fortify those schools.
And I'm outraged, and we should all be outraged. We need to do something, and expelling Justin Jones is not the answer.
Now, county commissioners in Tennessee will pick replacements for the expelled lawmakers. Those replacements will serve until a more formal special election is held. But the fight may not be over for those 2 lawmakers who were expelled. Representatives Jones and Pearson could be chosen as their own replacements by the county commissioners. The 2 men are also eligible to run in those special elections. If they win, they'll be reinstated as state lawmakers. And on Capitol Review, our Thasmin Mahfouz is discussing President Trump's recent arraignment, and News Nation's Evan Lambert is taking a closer look at the 2 black lawmakers expelled from the State House in Tennessee. Here's a preview of what to expect on the show.
And there's a lot of talk about a potential gag order leading up to the arraignment. What ended up happening?
Well, there was no gag order that was implemented. No one requested it, but the judge did say at Tuesday's arraignment that even if someone did request a gag order, that he would not have granted it. The concerns that we've heard from Trump's legal team is they say it would effectively be trampling on his First Amendment rights, given that he's a 2024 presidential candidate. The judge seemed to sympathize a little bit with that argument, saying that he recognized that wasn't ideal and that would stifle the former president's speech. But before leaving the courtroom, the judge did give a warning to Trump's legal team and asked them to tone down the rhetoric, basically, and asked them specifically to refrain from any posts that would be likely to incite violence. Now, since that warning was given in court on Tuesday, we've seen the former president continue to attack the judge and prosecutors since then. And the judge said he could come down the road and issue a gag order. So only time will tell if he changes his mind, given that the statements are continuing. But as of now, there is no gag order.
Are there any legal methods where the 2 could actually see a reinstatement?
So what's next really is that in the absence of when there is a vacant seat, essentially what happens is county commissions from the districts where those representatives came from, they get to appoint someone in the meantime to fill that seat. These representatives who were kicked out, they both come from largely Democratic areas, Nashville and Memphis. And so it's up to the county commission to put someone in their place until there is a special election. So it is very likely that these 2 can get their seats back. Justin Jones telling media outlets that he absolutely would seek his seat again and that he will not give up on his pushes for gun reform.
Watch Capitol Review starting tomorrow at noon on WDVM and 6:30 on DCW 50.
All right, good evening, folks. I hope you had a good day today, even though it was cool out there. There were plenty of clouds out there. It's the weekend after all. Put on a happy face. What about the temperatures out there? 50 degrees, overcast skies right now, as you can see quite nicely. Those clouds in play here at Reagan National Airport and elsewhere across the region. It's not just Reagan National, as you can see with our satellite view. All clouds encompassing all of the counties that we provide you information for. So that means western Maryland into the district and all points in between, including obviously Northern Virginia. Speaking of Virginia, rain showers are just at really the border, Southern Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina. My goodness, seeing some rain down that way, and that's impeded the Masters some. Overcast conditions here early on. As far as Frederick, Maryland's concerned, we're looking at 46, 44, and 43 for temperatures from 8 to 9 to 10 p.m. If you're going out in Frederick, Maryland, dress appropriately for those type of temperatures. As you can see, the cold alerts that is out there. Again, we've got a frost advisory. That is for the district surrounding it around I-95. West of I-95, we have a freeze warning, so temperatures there should get down to the freezing mark or below. And then we have a freeze watch. One county, Spotsylvania County, that is watching to see if we get into those freezing temperatures. Fredericksburg down in this general vicinity is already at 30, looking to get down to the 34-degree mark. So that's why the freeze watch for there. But you notice Culpeper 31, Luray, and Woodstock 28 respectively. So that's why the National Weather Service put those freeze warnings and freeze watches in place. Of course, Fido has a fur coat, so you don't have to worry about Fido tomorrow morning. You have to worry about yourself, because 20s and 30s will be temperatures out there. It'll be a dry and cold start. All right, freeze warnings for some overnight tonight. A beautiful Easter is expected. Possible frost Monday morning, and temperatures warm greatly this week. We'll break it down for that 7-day forecast.